One thing that I used to do on this channel was resume reviews. I've stopped doing that because people weren't really watching the previous videos and just sending in their resumes with the same mistakes that I've covered countless times. Instead of pulling my hair out trying to review these common mistakes over and over again, I'm just going to tell you what they are and you can fix your own damn resumes. I'll include some good examples, what you can model off of, and let's note that there's no such thing as a perfect resume, but there damn sure is such thing as a shit resume, so if you're making any of these mistakes, hopefully this video will help you out. Alright, let's get right into it. Let's start off with an easy one that doesn't really require too much effort on your part to fix, and that is the 2-column, or God forbid, the multi-column resume. Please get rid of this and switch to just a single column format. Having more than one column is hard to read as your eyes will too easily drift between the sections, and because you've got 2 columns, everything is now squished with much less margin width to work with, and the text becomes harder to read. Switch to a 1-column format and the person reading your resume will thank you for it. Okay, mistake number 2 is again a really easy one, and for some reason you guys are doing this. You guys are putting irrelevant personal information on your resume. Here's an example of something that someone sent in where they put their interests were basketball and fitness. I'm sure it's great that you're into basketball and fitness, but what does this have to do with you being a software engineer? Your resume is supposed to be the opportunity for you to showcase your career achievements and work experience, but instead you want to waste space talking about your personal hobbies and interests. Resume is not the place for it. By all means, make small talk with your interview during the interview to break the ice, but there's really no reason this needs to be on your resume, so please get rid of it. There's more important stuff to put. Number 3, and I see this one all the time, is pointless education details. For some reason, a lot of you like to just fill your resume with unnecessary details when it comes to your education. For example, you don't need to put your high school, you don't need your university GPA. Unless you're a student or a new grad, it doesn't matter, no one gives a shit. And also, you guys like to put your university course lists. You have a computer science degree, you don't need to tell me the entire syllabus for your course. The fact that you took data structures and algorithms, is that supposed to impress me? No, literally everyone does it. Please don't tell me every single course you've done. You're again just wasting space and it's completely pointless. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Mistake number 4 is that you guys' resumes are too long. Longer in this case is not better. Please try to keep it to 1 page. Remember that a human needs to read all of this information, parse it, and then make a decision about you as a potential candidate. You really don't want them getting tired trying to parse through your multiple pages. Short, concise, and to the point. There's really no reason to have multiple bullet points of information for the first job you ever did when now you have much more experience. No one really cares about the div that you centered for 3 months when you were first learning. Please leave as much space as possible for the most recent and most experienced work you're doing. If you find yourself in a position where you have a lot of experience and a lot of previous roles, then you can list the company, the role, and the time that you work there, and maybe include something like information available on request instead of trying to, fit everything onto 3 pages, and no one's going to really read, the job that you did 20 years ago because they're more interested in what you did now. Okay, that's mistake number 4. Your resume is too long. Let's now move to mistake number 5. Mistake number 5 is the project section, and there's 2 different lanes that you can fall into here. If you have prior work experience, then don't put your projects on there. It will just make you look less competent. Focus on your real-world work experience as opposed to some random project that you did at university. The only real exception to this is if you contribute to popular open source repositories, but even then, you better actually be implementing some sort of new features and not just adding new lines to the README file. That's nonsense. If you're a student and thus have 0 experience, then this is probably the only time you really want to have a project section, because let's be honest, you have fuck all else to put. Focus on building something original and try to deploy it to the internet instead of just something that you hack together on your local machine and upload it to GitHub. Please, not another to-do app for God's sake. These have been done to death and we know that you've just copied it from YouTube. Please don't make that mistake. Mistake number 6, and I see this all the time, is you guys are trying to claim some BS certifications or awards on your resume. We can really see right through these. Things like, I solved X problems on HackerRank or LeetCode, I participated in a university hackathon, I did this Udemy or Coursera course, or I'm a Scrum and Agile master. All this stuff is fluff, and you know it. Stop trying to fill your resume with crap and stick to the important stuff. One caveat to this is if you have legitimate professional certifications, not something like a Coursera course where you can click through and complete in an hour. Things like an AWS Cloud Practitioner certification, Oracle DBA certifications, enterprise software certifications. These things you need to prepare for hours for and then take an exam. These are good certifications and should be put on your resume if you've put in the work to achieve them. Machine Learning 101 on LinkedIn, not so much. Mistake number 7 is the overinflated technical section. Probably one of the biggest pieces of bullshit that I constantly see on resumes is the absolute levels of lying and overinflating that people do when it comes to their technical skills. Someone with 6 months experience somehow has experience in half the programming languages in the industry. Yeah, right. And a personal favorite of mine is when they try to claim editors like VS Code as a skill. Really? Using a code editor as a skill? Like, no shit. Another one that always makes me lose my mind is when someone will put that they know how to use a Mac or a Windows PC as if it's an accomplishment that you can use a computer as a software engineer. No shit. Do you want credit for breathing as well? In case you're thinking I'm just being over dramatic and too much of an asshole, let's look at an actual example that someone sent in. This person has 2 internships, and let's count the total experience. So January to April 2020, let's just assume that they worked all 4 of those months, so that's 4 months. And September to December, that's also 4 months. So let's do the math here. They have 8 months of experience, and let's see what skills they have. After 8 months in the industry and presumably 2 years in a degree, they have knowledge of Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, Java, C, C++, HTML, CSS, and then they also know React, Node.js, Flask, PostgreSQL, Electron, Bootstrap, Git, Docker, Linux, Android Studio, LOL, that's an IDE, Ansible Tower, Rundeck, and Jira. Either this guy is the next Mark Zuckerberg and he's going to create the next $1 million company, or he's lying out of his ass. Personally, my money's on number 2. You definitely don't know all of these skills. Please stop lying on your resumes. It makes you look horrendously inexperienced and unprofessional. No one believes that you know all these technologies. It will cost you. You can claim that you know all these languages to maybe get past an automated system that screens your resume, but what happens when you've written 1 line of C++ code and your interviewer is a C++ expert and decides to grill you on the internals of C++ and you shit your pants because you've been lying through your teeth the entire time? Don't be that guy. As soon as they realize you're lying about your technical skills, your resume is going in the bin. Please stick to the languages you actually know and are comfortable with. Don't try to overinflate yourself and make yourself seem bigger than you are, because someone will come and burst your bubble. It's inevitable. Don't lie. Please tell the truth and actually stick to what you know. You don't need to have this huge laundry list of skills and technologies you know. It doesn't make you a dumbass if you know two or three things well, instead of having things that you've maybe written 1 line of code in your life. Anyway, this is getting too rambly. You get the point. Stop lying about your technical skills. Everyone knows you're lying. It's total nonsense. Mistake number 8, and this is the worst one you can make, so please pay attention, is to have a bad experience section. The experience section is the most important part of your resume, and it's crucial that you write this part well. Let's recap what you want to be conveying in your experience section. You want to be answering questions like, what did you do? What tech did you use? What problem were you trying to solve? Who were the involved stakeholders and partners? What was the outcome? And what was the impact of your work? We use these questions to guide us when writing our experience section so that our explanations are clear and concise. We want to give the interviewers enough information to gauge our accomplishments without overwhelming them with tons of details. We don't need to note every single tiny detail of our work. It's the interviewer's job to ask questions and probe you about your work. Now, let's learn from some poor examples and see how we can improve them. Let's now look at some actual examples, because sometimes the best way to learn is from our mistakes, and the second best way to learn is from some random guy on the internet roasting you. So let's get into it. This one is particularly funny because it has a very interesting claim here, was that they brought a legacy React Native app back to life. Now, this is really impressive. This person is a healer. I don't know, they have a magic touch, whether they gave it CPR, used a defibrillator on it, some sort of voodoo magic. Nobody knows, because it's extremely vague. So I can only assume that they're actually a shaman and they performed some incantation which brought this application back to life. Without any further details, we'll never know. So in my mind, they are a wizard. Now, let's look at the other ones, which are a bit more professional and much less vague. So we have three things here, which was they upgraded more than 50,000 lines of code across three projects from PHP 5.6 to 7.1. Cool. They used GitLab CI to catch bugs before production, and they also got rid of countless instances of code duplication. Now, the thing is, all three of these are a bit similar, and they kind of fall under what we at Facebook would call better engineering, which is, kind of the refactoring side of things, or kind of upgrading systems as opposed to building new features. So instead of having 3 points, which we can spruce it up a bit. And the way that I would personally rewrite this and make it sound a bit more professional is I would say something like this. Spearheaded a better engineering effort, if I could just spell, better engineering effort to modernize the company's code base by overseeing the migration from PHP 5.1 to 7.1, introducing GitLab CI to catch build issues, and setting coding standards to reduce code duplication and follow best practices, right? So this way puts you in much more of a driver's seat if you want to then go on and actually talk about the impact of your work. Presumably, when you migrated from PHP 5.1 to 7.1, or 5.6 rather, whatever, it doesn't really matter, to 7.1, you saw some sort of performance gain. Hopefully, you were actually monitoring these things and you can talk about it. Maybe your application now runs 25% faster. When you introduce this GitLab CI to catch build issues, maybe you can talk about the number of issues that you've caught. And, you can talk about the coding standards. I guess that one you don't really have to elaborate on. That one's pretty straightforward. But yeah, you can just rewrite this to make it seem more professional and kind of consolidate 3 points, which are really saying the same thing, into one, and kind of just make you seem like, as opposed to just doing one-off tasks, you are leading an effort, an initiative, right? Because all of these things are larger scale projects, and saying it as if, your impact is across multiple teams will make you look like more of a senior engineer than just kind of doing ad hoc one-off tasks. So that's why it's good to kind of bunch them in and say that it was a better engineering effort, because that implies larger scale, multiple teams were involved, as opposed to you just doing it on your own. And that gives you a lot more space to talk more about your wizard skills that you used for this React Native app that you brought back to life. Please let me know how you did that. I've got some family members I'd like to see again. So if you can get in contact with me with your spells, that would be great. Okay, let's now move to another example and see if we can't apply what we've learned so far to that one. Let's now look at another example, and this one is much more polished, but we still run into the problems of not really answering a lot of those questions that we posed in the beginning. So let's look at a few ones here and see what we can learn. The first one is this first point, where they claim to have been the technical lead for a greenfield project to prototype, develop, and launch a petabyte scale data platform for predictive maintenance of vehicle fleets, reporting, and analytics. Okay, this seems, sufficiently complicated enough, but you're not really answering some of those key questions. Let's kind of recap. So what is the problem you're trying to solve here, right? Presumably it's that your current data system doesn't scale and that's why you're building this new one. But I don't know, you probably want to give me some more details, right? All right, so who are you working with to, implement this, right? Who are the stakeholders, right? So presumably the users of this database are going to be your stakeholders, but who are you working with, right? You're the technical lead. Who is the team working under you? What was the outcome? Did you actually ship it? Does it work? What was the impact here? Can you quantify it? How much data are you now able to store? How much faster is it than the last system? These are all questions that you can kind of dive into. This seems like it's meaty enough to talk about, but you want to give a little bit more detail to kind of present yourself in a better light. Another one that we want to talk about is this one: provided mentorship to team members and interns. Again, we're not really giving the information that we want to give here. What sort of mentorship, right? What sort of mentorship were you giving? You can definitely expand on this and give your interviewers more detail, and don't frame it as if it was like an ad hoc mentorship. You want to frame it as kind of it was like a larger scale thing. Maybe you were running, you were doing code reviews for new hires, running brown bag sessions, which were recorded. You were doing one-to-one meetings, right? What sort of mentorship were you providing, right? Just saying that you did mentorship, it's very vague. What does that mean? Did you send them a message on Slack to check in how they were doing? Did you give them design reviews, code reviews? This is your opportunity to kind of give some more detail. So again, this is a better example where they give a lot more technical detail, but they're still not really answering some of those main questions that we want to solve. We don't want to just do a brain dump and, say that we're doing predictive maintenance of vehicle fleets, reporting, and analytics, right? This part, not as important. We want to focus on answering those core questions, which will kind of frame our work here in the best light possible. So as we can see, bad cases and even good cases can kind of go back to those first principles and spruce things up a bit to give more details to our interviewer and make their life easier when it comes to evaluating whether or not we'd be a good candidate. Probably the second candidate, just from the kind of the complexity that they've written about here, would most likely get, a call back at least, but, we don't want to put ourselves in any sort of disadvantage. We want to give the interviewers the information they need and not leave their head scratching like, what does it mean to ensure data lineage, right? Give the details they need, but also keep it short, concise, and to the point. So there you go. That is another example. And there you go. Those are my 8 common resume mistakes. Hopefully this video helped you out, and if you made any of these mistakes, then you now know how to fix them. As always, please leave a like and a comment on the video. Helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.